Brian Pelletier from SDVI here with Josh Derby of Discovery and Dave Cleve from A+E. Hi, Dave. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Brian.
Thanks for joining me today. You were recently required to transfer a large amount of content between your companies on a very tight deadline. Today, I would like to understand more about how you were able to accomplish this transfer and what challenges you had to overcome in order to be successful. Dave, can you talk a little bit about your strategy for content fulfillment?
Yeah, absolutely. A&E has a great content library. We've been making some great content for a long time. So one of the things my team's really charged with is to make sure it's able to go everywhere it needs to go. And we send it hundreds of different places around the globe on a regular basis. And we're fulfilling more and more library content deals where pieces out of those archives are going to new distribution platforms. So there's really an exponential growth in the need for us to distribute content, particularly file-based content out of those archives to lots of different places. And of course, it needs to get into the right format and get where it needs to go on time with the right metadata. So that's really been where our team is focusing on, ramping up and making that archive more agile and flexible and able to fulfill all those deals.
Josh, what does the process of the acquisition look like? How do you catalog and library all this content coming in from a outside source?
Our normal process for bringing in content, it's more tailored to production companies that deliver a new episode of a series every week. We have an application called the Discovery Producers Portal that ultimately connects to our Rally environment. It lets people go through a web interface, upload files through Signiant or Aspera, and then enter the metadata about those files by hand. And that works really well when you're a production company delivering an episode a week, or even, delivering dozens of things, it's fine. But when you're delivering thousands of things in a short amount of time, that gets really labor intensive. And when Dave and I looked at what needed to be done, it was not going to be possible with the operational staff that A&E had and with the folks on our side being able to handle it if we couldn't figure out a way to do a fast and effective B2B connector between our two companies to make this project work.
So how did the idea come about to sort of use your Rally systems to send content in a more direct, automated way?
I think, Dave and Don from A&E reached out to us and when we had talked about the Producers Portal, and they said, surely there must be something better. We are both, Rally users. Can't we figure out how to get along? And that led us into a, discussion about the best way to do it. We had been building up some features to try and do direct contribution to our systems via API. And so we had kind of a beta shell of an API, and A&E agreed to be kind of the live fire beta tester of our direct API. And that reached into our contractual system that basically defined the assets and allowed them to give those assets a discovery identity, which is something that's required to make our supply chain work. The discovery supply chain, one of the reasons we don't normally do bulk upload is because our supply chain needs to know the discovery contextual identity of everything coming in the door. When you upload through the Producers Portal, that automatically happens because you're kind of picking a thing off a list. So there's no mystery meat coming into the supply chain. If you're just dumping a bunch of files in an S3 bucket, that's not how it works. But once we had the A&E system, we were able to get the A&E systems connecting with that API. That then gave them back a discovery identity token. And from there, we were able to set up the bridge between the Rally systems that made the content copying and setting off the workflows possible.
Yeah, we've been trying a lot in a lot of our integrations since we've been pushing toward the cloud. We know we want to get stuff moving more efficiently. We know we want to get it faster. And so the cloud is a key piece of that strategy, of course. And so we had some success doing some cloud-to-cloud integrations overseas with some partners in Germany and some partners in Asia. So yeah, it's just like Josh said, when the deal came up with Discovery and we first heard about the volume involved with it, my boss, Don Jarvis, and I looked at each other like, can we do that? Can we figure that out? And so luckily when we called up Josh and the Discovery folks who we'd already known a little bit through collaboration in the SDVI user community, it was a good conversation to see what could be done to make that work with media and metadata together everything going without all that manual work.
Yeah, actually, our relationships through the SDVI user community were kind of what saved this project, because a lot of the folks who use SDVI have a common Slack where we ask each other questions and, pro coding tips for the Rally environment, things like that. And we were able to use that as the method for coordinating all the work around this project. So that I would say that this kind of succeeded on the relationships that we'd already built with each other as just participants in the kind of Rally supply chain universe.
Yeah, and we're all kind of talking the same language at that point too. Like, when
Yeah.
we're approaching things in similar ways, we're putting things through similar supply chains. Like, it sort of becomes a lingua franca where we're all looking at it and approaching it as a supply chain. So a great opportunity to collaborate and figure out what the next best thing is.
Yeah, when we were designing the supply chain on both sides, there was kind of a give and take. One of the things that the A&E side needed to do was to switch to the new SDVI file movement provider versus an older version, and that was something Discovery had already done. And on the Discovery side, A&E has a different way of handling captions than we traditionally do, and so A&E was able to give us some caption de-embedding code to test out so that we could figure out how to handle their caption format and translate it to the format that we're more accustomed to using. So
Sure.
There was kind of that exchange of ideas from both supply chains where we were like, hey, well, this is how we do it. And A&E was like, hey, how about try this? So it was nice to have that kind of common development and common ecosystem language when we were building up the supply chains on both sides.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were able to plan it out, do supply chain design, and then do Rally configuration on your respective Rally systems in order to make the content work together. That's great. How long sort of from idea spark to, hey, we have content coming in? What was the time frame like?
We had the Thanksgiving break kind of in the middle of this, so it drug it out a little bit. But from the point where we were testing supply chains, we had it firing assets in around a week. I would say actually that the most frustrating day that we spent was the day where we were figuring out the security setup between our cross-account Amazon buckets. And that was actually, I think, of all the things in the supply chain, what took most time was just managing the cross-account file copy security more than anything on the Rally side. But I think on both of our sides, we were development complete and ready to test in about a week.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how do you have a final number? Are you still pushing things?
Well, we pushed the initial load back in December. We're continuing to do content refreshes. We're continuing to use the connector back and forth in batches as we need to.
Yeah, we've got another refresh coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Another few hundred titles, and in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long ago. A few hundred titles at once would have seemed like a big deal. And
yeah,
with the integration set up the way it is, it's probably a few hours worth of transfers once we get them all set up.
We executed that full initial load between the silos in about 13 or 15 hours, something like that. It certainly came through like lightning once we had it direct connected, because we were doing all cloud to cloud transfers. So the actual bulk transfer executed in almost no time at all.
When we first open the floodgates and you start seeing, hundreds of assets start to process at the same time and move through the system, that was a fun day. I remember slacking back and forth talking about the right ways to manage the load so that it didn't overwhelm systems on any particular side. And it's powerful when you put that work in and then you open the floodgates and see that all go. It feels pretty cool to see it all actually make it into the other system.
That's great. So I know that the content flowed from Rally to Rally, and there was some external API connections for metadata. Any plans to explore more metadata delivery directly?
We're looking at a couple things for expansion. Our first kind of engagement was more around the media files, the video files, and the still images and the audio files. We're looking to try and automate more and more of the process to cover some of the document deliverables, scripts, and things like that. We've been working back and forth with Dave. We've also been expanding to cover caption files and subtitle files and things like that. Most of the metadata we've exchanged so far has been technical metadata, where the breaks in the files, what's on the audio tracks, things like that. We're kind of moving towards the, using the Rally interconnect as a way of exchanging descriptive metadata. We don't often, in our side on Discovery, we don't hold descriptive metadata in Rally because it's not needed to articulate the supply chain. But certainly if we wanted to do it that way, we could, because the APIs that we set up basically allow the A&E team to dump a JSON metadata payload on us. Right now it's mostly technical metadata, but we could extend it as we needed to.
Yeah, and we're doing that with some other partners too, where we do pull a lot of descriptive metadata into our Rally system and store it there for processing and generate output files like CSVs and XMLs on demand for some partners that need it. So we're always looking to expand how that works and make sure that we're as efficient as we can. We want to get it to the point where, you have a list of titles, you click a button, they go. And while the media is very close to that point, the metadata is always the more complicated side of it, and we're always working to streamline that.
Great. I guess the last question is, if this were a manual workflow, days, a week, months, how would you have fulfilled it otherwise?
Not possible. It's a really good. I mean, anything's possible with enough time, but I think
sure
folks on our end had put together initially a rough estimate of 30 to 60 days of manual effort for a team of roughly 5 people. Like that's, all they'd be doing is going to an interface and clicking a button and waiting for a file to upload and moving on to the next one. So at that rate, that was way past when we wanted it for launches and for other agreements down the line. So would it have even happened if we couldn't have gone as fast as we ended up being able to go? So it's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, the estimate on the manual labor was about 30, 60 days, and we had about 5. So it was one of those, necessity was the mother of invention. If the backup plan was impossible, then plan B became plan A in a hurry.
Yep, exactly right.
Excellent. Well, Josh and Dave, thank you so much for chatting about the Content Exchange today, and good luck and future success. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.